Ceann Comhairle, I note that there is no minister in situ at present.
Minister Feehan is here.
I note the presence of Minister of State Feehan, and I'm very sorry that the senior minister has taken it upon himself to leave on such such a discussion, on such an important motion. There is no doubting the fact, Ceann Comhairle, that the regulations are overkill. But I worry that the motion that is before us now, if it succeeds, would result in annulling all of the regulations, and that in of itself could be overkill as well. While we agree with the spirit of what is being debated here before us tonight, I think it's important that we recognise that if there is an attempt to completely annul the regulations, that if, for instance, there was a confirmed case of COVID on a given day, by annulling these regulations in a public house, for instance, that it would nullify any attempt to carry out contact tracing. So there are problems inherent within the motion before us tonight, notwithstanding the rightful anger that is being expressed in relation to the government's handling of the imposition of these regulations. I welcome the fact that the pubs will reopen on September 21st. I think we all here, as members, those of us that are reasonable and rational people, have been lobbying ministers for the last number of months and reflecting the views of the Vintners Federation of Ireland and other representative bodies, but most importantly, families, intergenerational families that have ran good public houses for donkey's years, who found themselves literally left out in the cold and looking askance at this minister's contradictory statements and this government's contradictory statements in relation to the imposition of regulations for other sectors, and we're wondering, were they ever going to be left back in from the cold? I'm glad now that there is a date of the 21st of September, and I'm hopeful that that will be adhered to, and I hope that they will be bound by that date, because it's vitally important that we get those pubs reopened, because not only for the reason of purveying alcohol, but for the impact that they have within their communities in relation to delivering, that intergenerational solidarity, that thing between people where that fundamental human need to get out of the house, to coalesce with their fellow members of their community, to meet, to talk, to chat, to, dare I say it, bitch and moan if I'm not, using unparliamentary language, but to bicker and to let people to get on with their lives, and to do so in a safe way, in a way that allows for, normal life to continue insofar as we can call the circumstances that we live in normal at present. And I just think that the minister needs to stop acting like the independent observer from Stokes Kennedy Crowley. He needs to start to feel what it's like to live in this country at present, and the contradictions where you tell somebody 1 week they can go to a GA game, a game that they have been following for years, and the next minute they're not allowed to witness the sport that runs through the very blood that courses through their veins. The minister needs to start having more empathy and not be dispassionate. And I think the minister needs to get out and start meeting real people, because I fear that he's been cocooned, to use that unfortunate phrase himself. I feel that he hasn't gone out and met the people, and if he met the people, he would probably sense the anger and the frustration of people who are living in this country at this point in time, who want to abide by the regulations, who want to obey the rules, but they also want some degree of normality to be restored to their lives, and to allow them to be able to do the things that they always did, and not to say you can do it 1 minute and then to stop it in its tracks the next. We need to have a degree of humanity, a degree of sympathy, a degree of emotional intelligence about how we conduct our affairs in this Parliament. And we look to government. And this government, to be fair, We've given them all of the support that any opposition could reasonably give any government, given the times we live in. But right now, common sense is broken down a Ceann Comhairle, and common sense needs to be restored. And we're asking the Minister to please take note of the fact that we are reflecting the views of ordinary people in the arguments that we're making here today. So I would just conclude by saying it is not common sense to take an occupational therapist working in the HSE and put that person into contact tracing, a frontline worker. We don't know how many of them have been put into contact tracing. How many people need occupational therapy in this state as we speak? It is not common sense to put an assistant psychologist who could be working with a family who is feeling the psychosocial effects of COVID and put that person into contact tracing or even testing. There's a skewed public policy going on at present where good frontline workers are being taken from key and essential jobs and being put into areas that they should not be deployed into. There needs to be a root and branch review of how COVID is being dealt with and whether or not the scarce resources are being deployed in the most effective way. I ask the Minister, I ask this government to start taking on the beef barons and to start looking and doing a deep dive in relation to what's happening in the meat industry. Because I fear, Ceann Comhairle, the barons are in the ears of the influential people and have influence in this society, an overbearing influence, such that the net effect is that it's affecting the very people who live in our communities, migrant workers, Irish workers, who are feeling the brunt of the culture that exists within that industry. It needs to be looked at, it needs to be reviewed, it needs to be taken on. We want a sense of decency. If there is decency and common sense, we will support it. But we have not witnessed decency or common sense these past few weeks.